Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. As many of you know, there was recently a shooting in Portland, Oregon that revolved around one of the protests about police violence. And there were some conflicting reports about this when it first came out. People have been asking me about this in my chat a lot. And up until now, I haven't said a lot because I didn't know a lot. And actually, what I did say turns out was wrong. I'll admit that. I have no problem admitting that, mainly because there's video evidence of it. So I couldn't say I wasn't wrong because, like I said, it's on video where I was doing a live chat. I had originally said, when I heard it, like a lot of people did, one of these group gatherings, probably some hotheads, got mad at some other hotheads and bullets started flying. Probably a bunch of armed Antifa wackos or something. That's what I said. Turned out I couldn't have been further from the truth. And like I said, I didn't want to say too much more beyond that, just than what I was assuming, because I didn't have any info. Well, now there's a lot of info. In fact, I've actually got to speak to someone who was there. So I've gotten a lot of more perspectives and just more evidence since I had been asked last in the chat. I actually discussed it last night, but I want to discuss it here with everybody now. Because it was being portrayed by a couple members of what you would call more conservative independent media, that this was a homeowner that was protecting his property against these Antifa thugs or whoever they were in this crowd, and things went south, and he ended up getting shot and shooting someone else, and actually shooting a couple of other people. Well, there were a couple other people shot, but it was unclear who did it. Since I've heard that news, I have found out that that is wrong in many ways. Now, a lot of that account was based on what the police had said immediately after, because the police actually said in an official statement that, a homeowner was shot and someone in the crowd was shot along with some other people. One person was killed, but everyone involved took off, and no one was there willing to talk to the police, that they were being resistant, blah, blah, blah. Turned out none of that was true. Now we know from police reports and from local reporting and from witnesses on the scene and video evidence from the scene that all the people that were directly involved were still there when the police got there. 3 of them were nursing bullet wounds. 1 of them was dead, and 1 of them was in serious condition. So they were all there. And it turns out what happened now we know is, 1, the guy who did the initial shooting was the supposed homeowner. He was the one who shot first. And also, he's not a homeowner. He does not own a home in that area. He actually lives with another person in an apartment in that area, does not own property there. Also, this did not happen on his property or anyone else's private property. It happened in the park. Apparently, he came home, went over to the park, and told him to get out, which I don't know why he thought he had that right, but that's what he did. According to video evidence and people on the scene and the police reports, that happened. Then he got into a verbal confrontation with the people there, and he started shooting. He was the first one to shoot. He shot 3 people. Actually, I think he shot 4 people. He killed 1 and wounded 3. And then someone in the crowd that wasn't immediately involved in what was happening there fired on him and shot him in the lower abdomen hip area with a rifle. Well, that person did not take off. It turns out now the person who shot back from the crowd actually stayed and turned themselves into police and were arrested. They were arrested. They actually turned over the rifle and turned themselves in, and they were arrested. Shortly after, police reviewed video evidence and testimony and determined that he should not be arrested and released him because it became clear to them that the gentleman who was supposedly the innocent homeowner is actually the one who not only antagonized the event, escalated the event, and then shot and wounded multiple people, killed 1, and then got shot himself after he did that. In fact, they said he did not stop firing until he was struck with a bullet. So turns out who we assumed were probably the bad guys were not the bad guys in this case. And the person we gave the benefit of the doubt to, the 43-year-old white conservative guy, which by all accounts now, even his roommates and his people who knew, roommate and the people who knew him, he was a very conservative man who was not a fan of BLM, but who is really. And I don't like really bringing people's political affiliations into things like this, because when someone's a dick, they're a dick, no matter what their political affiliation. And there's plenty of dicks on the left and the right. Gun owners are just people. So anything people are, there are some gun owners that are those things. There's gun owners that are doctors. There's gun owners that are black. Gun owners that are Mexican. Gun owners that are lawyers. Gun owners that are bricklayers. And there's gun owners that are just total douchebags, just like any other group of people. So there are some lessons, though, to learn from this. One, we shouldn't jump to conclusions who's right, who's wrong here, because like I said, according to police reports, according to all the evidence, and now that guy is charged. He's still in critical condition in the hospital, but he is being charged with murder and attempted murder because he sought out the event, he escalated the event, he fired upon people, he killed people, he injured people, and then he was stopped by a gunman in the crowd. And in this case, in my opinion, the good guy is that gunman in the crowd. But still, good gunman, good guy with a gun. It just wasn't the person that a lot of people gave the benefit of the doubt to. And like I say, there's a lot of lessons here in this event. Not just to don't jump to conclusions, but also going out and presenting a firearm. Remember the McCluskeys that did that? They went out and she pointed a gun at him and he had an AR at the ready. And I said, that was really stupid. And a lot of people jumped all over me about it. Well, the reason it was stupid, like I said, was tactics. If you went out there and you're like, I'm going to defend my property, I'm going to stand out here with my gun, anyone in that crowd that then felt threatened by you, who was also armed, had a perfect shot to take you down, like this guy with the rifle took this guy down. You wouldn't even know where the shot came from before you hit the ground. And then if you did survive being shot and were able to shoot back, you'd be left shooting wildly into a crowd of people. Most likely not the person who shot at you. So it was a no-win situation. That is why this right here, someone in the crowd picking him off as he was firing, much less if he had just been standing there threatening people and someone had perceived him as a threat, would have been easier to take him down. So I want to show that as a lesson here. Don't think you can pick a fight because you're armed. That's a lesson. Don't think that, hey, I'm going to go over here and start a fight and I'm okay because if it escalates, I can use deadly force because I have a gun, because you don't know who else has guns. So it's best to avoid problems when you have a firearm on you, because you do have the ability to execute deadly force on someone. And if those people also have that ability, that leads to a really bad situation when it could have just been avoided. So avoid it when possible. He obviously did not avoid a bad situation. He went right over into it and potentially caused it. So that's another lesson right there. When you're carrying, be a good guy. Avoid problems. Don't escalate things. Just not a good idea to do when you're carrying a gun. This guy is seriously injured. A rifle shot to the lower abdomen, hip area, that's not a small thing. He's in intensive care. And he's going to be facing murder charges and attempted murder charges. So his life is probably ruined now, if he survives, because of this altercation over whether he thought people should be in a park. I'm a firm believer that anybody who supports the Second Amendment should support people's First Amendment rights to protest, especially if they're doing it in a public park or something like that. But I also understand some people are just sick of it if it's on their street, but I still think we should support the Second Amendment. Also, I think we need to pay attention that people that are good guys with guns and that should have guns aren't always the people we think. I don't want to fall into that trap. So many people in the gun community fall into the trap of it's only like conservative, Republican, or whatever people that are good gun owners. No, there's good Democratic gun owners. There's good liberal gun owners. There's good every color gun owner, gay, straight, everything else. And in this case, it appears to have been a good, responsible gun owner who was at a rally against police brutality, because he stepped up and stopped a bad guy who went over, started trouble, and started shooting. So good guys with guns come from all groups, just like I say. Not everyone who supports the ideal of BLM is a bad person. Most of them are great people that are there for what they think are good reasons. Just like most people who support causes on the other side, like the trucker rally, etc. They're not bad people. They're good people. You just might not agree with their causes. And in this case, there was a good guy with a gun in that crowd who stopped a bad guy with a gun. That's the big story here to me. He could have killed more. Maybe he had a couple magazines with him and he was going to empty all of them. But he got stopped because they said he was firing right up until he got hit. So right there, someone acted quickly, took down a gunman who was acting irresponsible. He was a fucking dick, obviously. And most of the reports I've heard from people is he was a very angry person. And that's not uncommon these days, especially if you're 43 and living in an apartment with a roommate. A lot of people are disenfranchised. A lot of people have never been able to achieve their potential because of the system and everything else. And sometimes bad choices of their own, but not always. So this is a lot of stuff going on here. It was a very complex situation. And the way it was first reported, totally wrong. The Pools and the whatever that other Asian guy's name is that reported, the complete opposite. They decided, I guess, they made the mistake a lot of people who are pro-gun did. They immediately tried to defend the shooter, the person who was shooting, that he must have had a good reason. And I understand that desire. It's like when people, whenever they see anybody do something bad with guns, they'll yell, false flag, because they don't want to accept that some people do bad things with guns. But some people do bad things with guns. And some people do good things with guns, like the guy who stopped him. And we should be willing to accept that there's good guys with guns no matter what group they come from if they do the right thing. In this case, that guy with the rifle who turned himself in, turned over the rifle, was arrested and then later released because the video evidence supported that he was defending people. That guy was a good guy with a gun and he should be praised, in my opinion. The people he hangs out with, I hope they see it that way. I hope they don't be like, ooh, guns, we hate guns, so you're a bad guy because you shot someone, even as he was trying to shoot us, because that would be a ridiculous mindset, but you see that sometimes. So I'm hoping the people he saved and helped appreciate what he did and don't label him a bad guy simply because he had a gun, because that would be ignorant. But like I was saying, this is a complicated story where it turns out looks like the bad guy was the person a lot of people were given the benefit of the doubt at the beginning, and the good guy is the one that they weren't. But like I said, it's still a good guy with a gun. Sometimes assholes do things that are bad with guns, but I've always said the best solution for that is there'd be good guys with guns there. If more people had been armed, maybe he wouldn't have been able to shoot anybody. Or maybe he would have seen, hey, there's 10 people here and they're all armed. I'm not going to go over and start trouble because there's just one of me shooting. There'll be 10 of them shooting. I'm assuming he thought, this type of crowd is not going to be carrying guns. I've got an advantage. And that advantage turned out not to be the advantage he thought it was. And he is paying the price. But I just wanted to report in on it. Like I said, there's lots of lessons to learn here from this. And I think being judgmental and jumping the gun on the story is the least of them. There's a lot of lessons here about good guys with guns should be everywhere because you never know who's going to be a bad guy. And sometimes bad guys need to be stopped. All right, everybody, I'm sorry I went so long there, but like I said, it was a complicated story. And not only did I want to tell people the facts as I've seen them coming out now, but I wanted to compare them to the facts we saw come out originally. And I wanted to address several lessons I thought could be learned from this. So it took a little while because everybody knows I ramble and I'm kind of absent-minded. So it takes me a while to get where I'm going. So sorry I went so long, but I do want to say thank you for coming. I hope you come back again tomorrow, where hopefully I'll stay more in my time frame. Until then, I just want to remind everyone to always carry, even if you're going to a protest, and stay safe until I see you again.